colleagues on the phone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have Congressman from Alabama, Mo Brooks. He is at the baseball practice. He was there when the shooting broke out. He's on the phone with us now. Congressman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Forgive my voice cracking a little bit, but the adrenaline and the emotion is still high.
It's totally understandable. Are you okay? What do you know about the situation there?
Well, right now we're secure. We get here about 6:15, 6:30. If you're familiar with the movie, remember the Titans?
Yeah.
Well, we practice on their baseball field. 6:15, 6:30. Tomorrow night is supposed to be the game. Hopefully we'll still have it, but I don't know. It raises about $600,000 for charity, and we played in the Washington Nationals baseball stadium. Frequently the president will come, so it's a pretty good time for all, except for the fact that the Democrats have been beating us so much. But I was on deck about to hit batting practice on the third base side of home plate, and I hear a loud bam. And I look around, and behind third base in the third base dugout, which is cinder block, I see a rifle. And I see a little bit of a body, and then I hear another blam, and I realize that there's an active shooter. At the same time, I hear Steve Scalise over near second base scream. He was shot. He's our majority whip. The gun was a semi-automatic. It continues to fire at different people. You can imagine all the people in the field scatter. I run around to the first base side of home plate, and we have a batting cage that's got plastic wrapped around it to stop foul balls, and hide behind the plastic. You know, that plastic's not real good. And I was lying on the ground with two or three others as the gunfire continues. Heard a break in the gunfire and decided to take a chance. Ran from home plate to the first base dugout, which is also cinder block, and down about 2 or 3 feet so you can have better cover. There were a number of congressmen and congressional staffers who help us lying on the ground. One of them was wounded in the leg, took off my belt, and myself and another congressman, I don't remember who, applied a tourniquet to try to slow down the bleeding. In the meantime, I'm towards the right field side of the dugout, and there's gunfire within about 5 or 6, 7 feet of my head. And I look up, and there's a guy with a gun blasting away. Fortunately, it was one of the good guys, one of our security detail who was shooting back. Of course, it was pistol versus rifle, our pistols versus the shooter's rifle along the third baseline, just outside the chain link fence. And he was ordering us to stay down. Another security detail person was closer to home plate. Probably, I couldn't see him, but probably on the home plate side of the dugout outside the fence line, using the dugout as cover as he's firing back. And there must have been 50 to 100 shots fired. Hard to itemize them. Eventually, it seems that the shooter shot both of our security detail people. There were some congressmen on phones screaming for reinforcements. Seemed like a long time, and we weren't even hearing sirens from local police officers, which tells me they probably did not yet know what was going on. Eventually, the shooter starts circling around third base. This is my understanding. Of course, I'm down on the ground helping the guy who's got a bullet hole in his leg. And the shooter starts coming around home plate towards we are, outside the fence line. And my understanding is that's where our security detail, maybe some of the ones who were wounded, still defending us, took him down. At which point, once we got the all clear that the shooter was down, we ran out to second base for Steve Scalise. He had crawled into the outfield, leaving a trail of blood. And we started giving him some liquids. I put pressure on his wound in his hip. And Brad Winstrip, congressman from Ohio, Cincinnati, fortunately, he's a physician. He started doing what you need to do to try to minimize the blood loss. Shortly thereafter, more the police showed up, again, it seemed like forever, but it probably was shorter than what it seemed. And a helicopter landed in center field and took away whomever the folks decided was the most wounded, most critical. I don't know who that person was. At that time, the police were causing all of us to gather outside the first baseline in the chain link fence and cordoning off the area in order to help assure that if there was a second shooter, that we would be better protected.
Oh my gosh, Congressman, we can't believe what you've just lived through and what you and your colleagues have just lived through, and you've just been able to tell us all of these details. Do you have any sense of how many people were wounded?
I think at least 5. One Congressman, Steve Scalise, at second base. One staffer, I wish I knew his name, but I don't. The one that was wounded in the leg in the bottom of first base dugout that we used my belt to help put a tourniquet around his leg. 2 law enforcement officers. One was shot in the leg. To his credit, after the was taken down, he went into the right field where Steve Scalise was lying on the ground to help tend to him. And the other law enforcement officer, Capitol Police or Secret Service, I don't know which it is, he was lying next to the security vehicle, and I'm looking at it now, and it appears that one of the tires has been shot out. So that gives you an idea of what the shooter was doing as he was trying to take out our security detail before he could get to the rest of us.
Congressman, you don't know the name of the staffer, but it is amazing that you were able in that moment of crisis to give him what mattered most, which was the help, the tourniquet. Such smart thinking for you under that kind of stress. You said that the whip, Congressman Scalise, left. Was he able to move under his own power? Do you know where he was hit?
No,
do you know the extent of his injuries?
He was not able to move under his own power. He was dragging his body from the second base infield, where it's dirt, to the outfield to get away from the shooter while all this firing was going on. And so here, we're seeing our colleague as we're under fire. He's lying on the ground, but there's not a whole lot you can do. So the situation is under control.
And
so that was, of course, emotionally distressing to know the position he was in. But he was shot in the hip. I think it was not a life-threatening wound, but I am not a physician. I don't know how deep into the hip area the bullet went. There was no exit wound that I could see. And again, when I got out to Steve, as Brad Winstrip was helping to cut off the pants, I was applying pressure with a cloth to the wound to try to help stop the bleeding. But there was a blood trail about 10 to 15 yards long from where he was shot to where he crawled into right field.
Oh my gosh, Congressman, you said that the gunman was taken down. Do you know if the gunman was killed?
Well, no, I do not know if he was killed, but I'll tell you, I don't have any kind thoughts right now about the shooter, so it's probably best that I just leave it at that.
The authorities have said that he is in custody. That's early information. Let's talk about how you're doing with all this, Congressman. It's amazing that you've been able to recount the events as they were going on, and you gave aid to 2 different people that you've told us about so far. How are you feeling about everything right now? How is everybody else there?
Well, it's hard to contain the emotions. My adrenaline is raging, and of course, it's never easy to take when you see people around you getting shot, and you don't have a weapon yourself, so you're not in a position where you can help defend. So you're pretty helpless. It's not a good situation to be in. I don't know what took our security detail as long as it took them to start exchanging fire. Probably they were as shocked as we were. And it seemed like a long time, but it may have just been seconds. It might have been 10 or 15, 20 seconds. But the bravery that they displayed, pistols against a rifle is not a fair fight.